In 1914, the world marched into a conflict it did not yet understand. Cavalry charges met machine gun fire, and within weeks the great powers realized they had entered a new kind of war, one driven not by bravery, but by industry. By 1918, that transformation was complete. Tanks crushed barbed wire. Aircraft ruled the skies. Entire nations had reshaped themselves for total war. The First World War didn't just end empires. It reinvented warfare itself and quietly drafted the blueprint that would be followed again in 1939. The most striking symbol of this shift rolled onto the Somme in September 1916. The British called it a tank. It was loud, clumsy, and often broke down before reaching the front. But it proved one thing: armor, firepower, and movement could break the deadlock of trench warfare. German officers took notice. 2 decades later, those lessons would evolve into radio-coordinated blitzkrieg divisions, the tactics that tore across Europe. That change in thinking was revolutionary. Officers like Fuller and de Gaulle saw the tank as a weapon of decision. A young German named Heinz Guderian added the missing piece: communication. By giving tanks radios, he turned them from isolated iron boxes into coordinated predators. What began in the mud of 1916 became the heartbeat of modern mechanized warfare. Above the trenches, another revolution took flight. Early planes were fragile scouts of wood and wire. Soon, pilots carried pistols, then machine guns. When engineers perfected the synchronization gear that let bullets pass through the propeller, the fighter was born. By 1918, the skies over France were alive with duels. Aces like the Red Baron became legends. The Fokker D-7 was so advanced that Versailles demanded every one be surrendered. From those machines came the Spitfire, the Messerschmitt, and the Mustang, children of a war that taught humanity to fly and to kill from the clouds. Not all progress was mechanical. Some was chemical. In 1915, near Ypres, German troops opened cylinders of chlorine gas that rolled through the trenches, a green cloud that burned lungs and blinded thousands. Mustard gas followed, sticking to skin and uniforms. The world was horrified. By 1925, the Geneva Protocol banned chemical and biological weapons, but it was too late to stop the arms race in protection. Gas masks, filters, and airtight vehicles became standard gear, a legacy every World War II soldier carried. Psychological warfare evolved just as fast. Governments discovered that propaganda could move armies without bullets. Posters, newsreels, and speeches turned entire populations into believers. Those lessons grew into the mass propaganda machines of Nazi Germany and the Allies alike. World War I had opened a new front: the battle for the mind. Meanwhile, the true engine of modern war roared to life behind the lines: industry. World War I proved that victory belonged to the nation that could outproduce its enemy. Factories once making cars now built tanks and aircraft. By 1917, Britain was producing millions of shells every week. Women stepped into roles once reserved for men: the munitionettes, whose hands fueled the front. Their story was one of quiet heroism beneath smokestacks. By the 1930s, entire economies could mobilize in weeks. Germany secretly rearmed, using the logistics and railways built during World War I. The concept of total war was no longer theory. It was routine. Even communication transformed. Early radios of 1918 became the lifeline of World War II. For the first time, commanders could coordinate air, land, and sea in real time. Out of those crackling signals came radar, sonar, and encrypted messages, the tools that defined modern warfare. When the guns fell silent on November 11, 1918, the world believed it had seen the worst. But even as the battlefields went quiet, factories still hummed, laboratories still glowed, and strategists still wrote. The Great War had ended, yet the age of modern war had only begun. Young officers who had survived the trenches studied every failure. Guderian, Patton, and de Gaulle swore never again to waste lives in static lines of mud. They devoured books on mobility, radio coordination, and combined arms warfare. They saw that the next war would not be won by who had the most soldiers, but by who moved the fastest. The Treaty of Versailles might have stripped Germany of weapons, but it could not erase memory. In hidden test fields across the Soviet Union, German engineers built experimental tanks and aircraft under civilian names. Meanwhile, Britain and France studied air defense, radar, and mechanized logistics, determined not to be caught unprepared, yet unwilling to imagine another war so soon. By the late 1930s, every weapon that would define World War II traced its bloodline to 1914 to 18. The T-34 tank owed its suspension to British designs from 1919. The Spitfire's sleek form borrowed data from Great War biplanes. Even the German U-boat was a perfected descendant of the UB-class submarines that had prowled the Atlantic 2 decades earlier. History doesn't restart, it refines, and the strategy refined with it. World War I had taught commanders the unbearable cost of stagnation. Speed, coordination, and decisive shock became doctrine. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, then France in 1940, the world called it blitzkrieg. But it was really the distilled wisdom of a generation that had learned how to fight an industrial war. The First World War built the machines, the Second unleashed them. The very inventions that once promised to end bloodshed, tanks, aircraft, radio, industry, returned, perfected, amplified, unstoppable. The nightmare had evolved, and beneath the tactics and steel lay something deeper, the human cost. World War I taught nations how to mobilize millions, but not how to heal them. By 1939, the children of those broken veterans were the ones putting on uniforms. The trauma of the fathers became the fury of the sons. From Verdun to Stalingrad, from the Somme to Normandy, the pattern remained the same: innovation, adaptation, annihilation. Each invention made killing faster, more precise, and more impersonal. The industrial age had found its darkest art form. Yet within that darkness were moments of light, courage, ingenuity, and endurance. Pilots risked everything to protect strangers. Medics crawled through fire to save lives. Engineers built machines meant for death but driven by brilliance. The war machine revealed not just our capacity for destruction, but also for sacrifice. And that is the legacy the First World War left behind. It did not end war, it standardized it. It created a world where progress and devastation marched hand in hand. But it also gave rise to voices that swore, never again, to treaties, to the fragile hope that knowledge might one day serve peace. If this story resonated with you, please like the video and subscribe to Echoes of War. Because history doesn't repeat, it remembers. And every echo tells a story.